A very warm welcome to all of you. And why we have called this India-US dialogue is because you all know that in the national education policy, for the first time, a lot of emphasis has been given to internationalization of higher education. The foreign universities, campuses in India, which we were waiting for a very, very long time, is now seeing the light of the day. And the policy does say that the top universities of the world, they can come and establish their campuses in India. The University Grants Commission is making the regulations for it, and I'm very sure that there will be very, very enabling regulations which will encourage the foreign universities to come to India. There's already a gift city which has been established in Gujarat, where there are no bars. Any university can come in the fintech areas and establish their campus in the gift city in Gujarat, and even the repatriation and everything is possible. No embargoes on that particular in gift city. So that is one thing. Then our universities are trying to go abroad. The policy says that our university should be going abroad so that the Indian universities are promoted abroad, Indian higher education is promoted abroad. Then again, for a long time, whenever we used to visit any foreign university or foreign country, there was a talk about the joint degrees, dual degrees, twinning programs, and it was mentioned that in India, why are you not allowing joint degrees? Again, a good news, joint degrees are now allowed, dual degrees are allowed, twinning programs are allowed, and that too without any restrictions, in the sense that no approval is required from anybody, any regulatory body like University Grants Commission or Government of India, provided you fulfill the eligibility norms. And eligibility norms are very, very simple. From India's side, it is that they should be in, say, top 100 of the NIRF ranking, which is the Indian ranking, or having A grade in the NAC rating, or in the 1,000 of the world ranking. So these are the three conditions, 300 and 1,000. And from the foreign side, only condition is they should be in the top 1,000. So if they are in the top 1,000 of the world ranking, be it QoS or THE, the twinning programs can be done, the joint degrees can be done, and the dual degrees can be given. Again, the only restriction is that at least 30% of the credits should be done from either of the universities. So 30% of the credits is a compulsory norm. And then the credit transfer is made easy between the foreign universities and the Indian universities. And also the small things like having an international students office. So it is important that every university which is wanting to host foreign students should be having an international students office. So that is also indicated, especially in the national education policy. So because of this, we thought that there is an impetus on the internationalization of higher education in India, and that can be fulfilled only when we have a dialogue between two countries or different countries. So this is the first in the series in which we are having a dialogue with the US university. One university is there. In future also we'll be having many more such dialogues. At AIU, you all know that what is AIU? AIU is the Association of Indian Universities, which is the largest association of the world and the second oldest association of the world. We are doing multiple activities, rather many organizations into one type of activities. Like, for example, we are doing the equivalence of foreign degrees with the Indian degrees, which is normally done by WES in USA, or US, UK, ANIC in UK. We are doing a lot of academic work, research work. We are also a national sports promotion organization where we are doing a lot of sports activities for the students. We are doing a lot of youth affairs activities for the students. So, I mean, many activities we are doing in which we are engaging with the vice chancellors. We hold vice chancellors 6 vice chancellors conferences every year. So we are engaging with the vice chancellors, with the academic staff in terms of having, say, we have started 10 training centers for sort of capacity building of the teachers on how to use technology for teaching, learning, as well as for assessment and evaluation. So these 10 centers are there. So we are engaging with everybody, student till the vice chancellors. This is what we are doing. And in the field of internationalization, we have done 3 major initiatives in the last year. One is establishment of INHI. INHI is Indian Network of International Higher Educators. So we saw that most of the countries have a network of international higher educators, but India doesn't have. And the result is that we have many universities, out of which, I mean, few are very good in internationalization. You know that the number of international students who are going out of India is around 8 to 10 lakhs, means around 1 million. but the number of students who are coming to India is around 49,000, and those 49,000 are also concentrated in very few universities. So some universities are very good in internationalization, but there are some who are wanting to do internationalization, but they don't know how to start, whom to talk to, whom to collaborate with, how to go about it. So we are trying to handhold these universities which have an intent to do internationalization, but they are not able to do it because of the know-how. They don't know how to do and whom to approach. So that is why we have established this network, Indian Network of International Higher Educators, which will promote internationalization in the higher education sphere in India. Second thing which we have done is we have established a AIU collaboration portal. So normally what happens is that whenever a foreign university wants to collaborate with Indian university in a specific area, they do not come to know that which university from India is good for that particular collaboration. For example, they know the NAC, which is the overall rating, they know NIRF, which is again overall, but suppose they want to collaborate in quantum physics, they will not know which university to approach. So in AIU, we have made an AIU collaboration portal in which we have told our universities that write the areas where you are good at, along with the credentials in terms of, say, publications or facilities or number of teachers, scholars, everything, so that when any university from outside writes on AIU collaboration portal quantum physics, down comes the list of Indian universities who are good in that particular area. So my request to Indian universities who are here is that please fill in your data in the AIU collaboration portal, and to the foreign universities that you can anytime go to that list and see which university is good in that particular area. Third, as Mr. Kuldeep told you, we are doing equivalence of foreign degrees with the Indian degrees. So in that also, till now, we were following the sort of duration approach, means the duration of the degree in the foreign country and the Indian degree should be same. But now we have shifted to credit approach. That is, the credit should be same. The number of credits in Indian and foreign university should be same, apart from other conditions. So we are giving the equivalence of degrees. That is also attracting many foreign students to India. So these are some things which we have done at for promoting internationalization. And why we chose US today is because we are seeing a lot of interest in US from the Indian students. So when we see the data, we see that in last 10 years, the number of students has in say 10 years back, 11% of the international students in US were from India. Today it is 22%, so it is doubled. And normally it was felt that China is having the maximum number of students, still it is having, but in the last 10 years, the China was having 29%, today it has 31%, so only 2% increase. But in India, it is almost doubled. So that shows that in times to come, the Indian students will be the most, the maximum number of Indian students will be in US. And even if you see the last year's data saw 19% increase from the previous year. But from China, it was 9% decrease. So that means more and more Indian students are wanting to go to US. So what we want to know from these dialogues is, when Indian students are going to US, what are they looking for? And what type of education they are looking forward to in USA? And what can we do to attract foreign students, means especially the US students to India, because right now there are only around 3,300 US students in India. So what can we do to attract US students to India? How can we forge collaborations when the US universities collaborate with Indian universities? What all they see, means what all they see in the Indian universities, and how do they find a partner? So all these things, if we are able to know, and even the international office, so what type of an international students office they have in US and what we should be having in India. So these small things which will promote internationalization, that we wanted to understand. So that's why we felt that we should be having this dialogue between the US universities and Indian universities, so that we can all learn better, do a lot of experience sharing, and know how to promote internationalization. So thanks again, once again to all of you for coming. Thanks to Seattle University, the president and the delegation, and thanks to Professor Raj Kumar, the dynamic Vice Chancellor of Jindal University, who is always forthcoming in such type of dialogues. Thank you very much. So
I want to extend a warm welcome to all of you, and of course, Madam Professor Pankaj Mittal. Thank you to her and her team to partner with us to do this dialogue on higher education. I want to begin by saying that, first of all, it's quite extraordinary that all of you accepted the invitation of AIU and turned up here. So many amazing universities, vice chancellors, institution builders, transformative leaders, deans, academics, and of course, thank you to the Fulbright Commission represented by Adam and Dr. Dutt. So it's a very, very unique opportunity for us to really reflect about the future of higher education, especially with regard to the Indo-U.S. context. Now, of course, many of us who are here are conscious of the fact that the Indian imagination of higher education is not only limited to the United States. We have today a whole range of opportunities out there. I was telling my friend from Seattle that there was a time, maybe a few decades ago, just at the dawn of Indian independence, the Indian imagination was to a large extent influenced by the United Kingdom. Most of Indian students would be aspiring to go to United Kingdom. And then somewhere since the 50s and 60s, US began to play a very important role. And today, post-2000s, you see a steady increase in the inward mobility of students from India to many other parts of the world, including Australia, Singapore, Hong Kong, South Korea, Taipei, other parts of Europe, and I dare say Eastern Europe and Central Asia. I mean, I was pretty shocked to see that at the peak of the Russia-Ukraine war, we had 20,000 Indian students pursuing medical education there. And when you look at Kazakhstan, there are Indian students. When you look at Uzbekistan, there are Indian students. When you look at China, there are Indian students. So in some ways, the extraordinary aspiration of Indian students to pursue global education is a real thing. Second, something that we briefly discussed, which is that India and US share so many things, but more importantly, we are both constitutional democracies. We are deeply embedded in civic and political culture that recognizes freedoms and liberties. We are also countries which are deeply embedded in democratic cultures which protect democratic institutions. We also have a very shared evolution of the democratic ideas and a very strong civil society, all of which makes the governance of both these countries equally complex. But at the same time, one of the remarkable things about the United States has been that several leading US institutions have played a very significant role in the establishment and evolution of several leading Indian institutions. I'm sure some of you know that MIT had a very direct role in the establishment of IIT Kanpur. Harvard Business School had a very substantive role in establishing and evolving the Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad. Ford Foundation, for many, many years, had a very significant role in contributing to the development of several Indian leading institutions. In some ways, it's important for us to retrace those steps and those dialogues and those opportunities. On the flip side, I should tell my American friends and others that we in India are also conscious of the fact that for a very long time, American institutions have had a far greater emphasis and I dare say even an obsession towards China. While I have great respect for China and Chinese universities, it's important for us to go back to those shared democratic values and pluralistic culture that we both share. And it's important that India ought to have a very important presence in the institutional imagination of higher education in the United States. We believe that this is clearly an Asian century, and I do believe that India has so much to offer, not only because of the over 1.4 billion people in India, but the fact of 900 million people in India being less than 35 years of age. When most parts of the Western world will become older, India will be younger. When most parts of the Eastern world, including China and Japan, will become older, India will be younger and will be younger for a longer time. Young Indians, I believe, will be shaping the future of India and the future of the world. And that's why it's important for American universities to look at India far more seriously than they ever had before. And I also think that one of the remarkable things about India is our strong commitment to pursuing higher education and research with a deeper commitment to diversity, inclusion, equity, and other forms of values that are deeply embedded in our higher education culture. I want to end by saying that another remarkable thing about India is that we are able to provide high quality education at a significantly lesser cost. We are able to create high quality research opportunities at an even lesser cost. I want to end by saying that my American friends may be surprised to know that India had a successful mission to Mars, the cost of which was approximately $75 million. That is less than the cost of the movie Gravity that Hollywood had taken. So this is India for you, leader in frugal innovation, recognizing the complexity of developing countries and its challenges and how we can play a leadership role. I would like to believe that the next century is going to be a deeper, a grander, and a pervasive engagement between Indian and US higher education institutions. And I am conscious that Seattle University in particular can play a very leading role.
I'll say a few words about Seattle. First of all, Seattle is the 15th largest city or metropolitan area in the United States, but it also is the third wealthiest metropolitan area, and that is because of just the unbelievable innovation that is based in Seattle. That really pervades its history, going back to companies like Boeing, which was founded in Seattle, but more recently Microsoft, Amazon, and very important to me, Starbucks. Seattle University is a Jesuit university, about 7,000 students. We were founded in 1891, and we now have 6 colleges. We have a law school, a business school, a College of Science and Engineering. We have 3 of those deans here with us today. A College of Nursing, a College of Education, and we're very international. It's interesting what Dr. Mittal was describing, and a little bit contrary to what Raj was describing. We have among our graduate students a really excellent representation from India. In fact, have 156 graduate students from India, which makes it our largest foreign contingent. It dwarfs our Chinese student population by about 3 to 1. And so we just welcome them, and part of the reason I think that they gravitate towards Seattle University is that Seattle is and has become one of the large centers for the Indian American community, and so a place where they certainly can find a supportive environment and lots of excellent Indian food. Just 3 things I'll talk about. Why should we be thinking globally as institutions of higher education? Why are institutions of higher education the right places for that global thinking? And then why India and the United States? And I'll be as brief as I can because I want to let my colleagues have an opportunity to speak as well, and then hear from all of you. I think it's the question why global is really easily answered, and it's because the challenges that we face, that we confront, and that we're trying to prepare our students to confront are all global. If I think about the 3 greatest challenges that our current students will have to confront and help us solve once they leave our institutions, right at the top of the list clearly is the challenge of climate change and building a sustainable future. And that is an inherently global problem that's going to require global solutions and global thinking. All of us are grappling with widening, this is the second challenge, I think, widening economic inequality. And we all, to the extent that we are, and all of us are, to some extent, pluralist communities, right, as mobility has increased, we grapple with questions of racial inequity. And so we need to prepare our students to operate in a world of a world that is plural, that's diverse, but also one in which inequality is widening and creating real stress for economic and political systems, and we see the consequences of that all the time. And then finally, even just in the last few days, been reading a lot about OpenAI and their new chatbot, and it's just the latest example of accelerating technological change. And that it obviously creates enormous opportunity, but also tremendous challenges and dislocations and instabilities of their own. In our most recent elections, we've seen social media playing a role in destabilizing democratic institutions. And so we need to be able to understand technology. And I'm talking here about everyone, right? Not just computer scientists, not just engineers. Need to be able to understand technology and and reflect on technology and through a lens that is multidisciplinary and ultimately ethical. And this is an area where I think Jesuit universities take that very seriously and have sort of built into our curriculum and our DNA interdisciplinary reflection and the attempt to wed not just technical excellence but also ethical reflection. So that's why, I mean, all of these challenges, right, are shared. They're all global, and they're things that we need to be thinking about through a global prism. And that leads to the second question: why higher education? I think universities are the natural place for that reflection to occur, right? Because we are the place where new ideas emerge, where people can come together across all their differences and reflect on and prepare to grapple with all of these sorts of challenges. And if you look through the history of, really the history of civilization, and it wasn't maybe always called a university, but something like a university has been at the center of cultural, technological, and social innovation. And then finally is this just the kind of brute demographic reality that the people who are going to help us solve these problems are not us, right? It's the next generation. It's our students, and so the university is the last place where we can really, in a sustained way, in a thoughtful way, reflect on these challenges and prepare to meet them. And then we send our students off into the world and hope that they will take us to where we need to be in the coming years. And so I think higher education is the natural setting for reflection on these great global challenges. And then finally, why India and the United States? And I think I share Raj Kumar's puzzlement at the fixation of American universities on China. And to me, it's always seemed to be the case that the natural collaborator in higher education and any number of other areas for the United States is India. Because we share so much. We share values, we share a commitment to pluralism and to tolerance and constitutional democratic governance. We share a common law heritage, and frankly, we share a language. This gathering could not happen without simultaneous translation in any other two countries that are as different as we are in terms of our geography and histories, right? But we share a common educational language in the midst of the linguistic diversity, the wonderful linguistic diversity of India. And so that possibility opens up just so many opportunities for dialogue and for us to learn from each other as educational cultures and as democratic cultures grappling with not the same problems, but very similar challenges. We had a great discussion yesterday at lunch about affirmative action and the scheduled castes, which are not the same thing, but very similar kinds of challenges that we as political and legal cultures have to struggle with over time, and we can learn from each other and the answers that we've reached in our own cultures and societies. So I think that we have to be thinking globally. It should be happening at universities, and the natural collaboration is between the United States and India, and I look forward to helping to build those collaborations and to continuing this conversation today. Thanks again.
It's an honor to be here. Thank you very, very much for having me. Thank you to Dr. Mittal for leading us, and to Raj for being such a phenomenal host over this entire trip. I personally have learned a tremendous amount from my time here and have enjoyed it thoroughly. I'm the Dean of Seattle University School of Law. I don't want to repeat anything that Eduardo said so wonderfully well, so I will just add a few thoughts. In legal education in the U.S., the best law schools in the country, and again, many of you, I am sure, know that our system in the U.S. for legal education is very different from what the rest of the world tends to do. We only have about 197 American Bar Association accredited law schools in the U.S. The best law schools have very strong international programs. Those international programs are burgeoning, are blossoming in very, very positive ways. This is due to many reasons, one of them being that the United States Supreme Court finally, over the last 15 to 20 years, for the first time, started to cite foreign precedent. It's hard to believe that our U.S. Supreme Court and court system generally had been so insular, so provincial, but finally we have recognized as an American system of law and legal profession that we must learn from our colleagues around the world. So the best law schools in the U.S. have very, very strong international law programs. And I will say boldly that we have a very, very strong such program, a young program, one that is headed now with our inaugural Associate Dean for International and Graduate Studies, who is an Indian-American woman, Sheetal Kalantri, who is doing a spectacular job. Some of you know her, and she will be visiting here in a few months. She will be coming back to Jindal Global, where she was a Fulbright Fellow some years ago. But the legal education system in the U.S. is now recognizing finally that all of our challenges essentially are global challenges, from environmental law to criminal law, trade, commerce, intellectual property, technology, and the law, etc. One of the most exciting aspects of serving as dean at the Seattle University School of Law is that I'm able to serve as a law school dean at the heart of the global tech hub that is Seattle, Washington, with Microsoft, with Amazon, with so many companies, T-Mobile, Google, within a stone's throw of our Sullivan Hall Law School building. So there's tremendous interest on the part of our students in studying technology and the law issues that themselves are necessarily international. And there is no more important partner for the United States than India and Indian universities and colleges, for many reasons. One of them being that you understand the importance and globalization of technology and innovation, and that we as lawyers and legal educators have to understand those businesses, those issues, those challenges, and how they interrelate to and with law. So I'm very honored to be here. I'm excited to hear what you all have to say and to partner with you in the months and years to come to make sure that we build these very, very necessary bridges between our two countries and our two legal educational systems. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Mittal. Thank you, Raj, for hosting us. You know, I'm a product of both Indian technical education and U.S. technical education, so I bring a unique perspective to this conversation. But what I will start by saying is science and technology is, by design, a global enterprise. So whatever we have here today or we can work on is looking through that lens of science and technology education. I would add 3 points. One, you know, future of science and technology is multidisciplinary. So how can we engage our students, our faculty, our partners in that multidisciplinary exercise is essentially important, because the challenges which President Peñalver mentioned are global and multidisciplinary, and those are the problems which we all have to work on. And India will play a big part. United States will have to play a big part. And this can only work through the lens of innovation. So my fellow Dean, Dean Varona mentioned, you know, we are in Seattle. Seattle is a hotbed of innovation in many ways. You know, Boeing commercial aviation started there. We have Amazon, Microsoft, and all other tech partners which are growing their presence in India and everywhere else. How can we do innovation? How can we do innovation through the lens of education, through the lens of creating science and technology solutions for an emerging economy such as India and for the world, is really the question which we should ask as higher education leaders here today. And innovation is, of course, in the DNA of United States and our higher education system, but it's also very inherent to Indian education system. I mean, you can all relate to the word jugaad, and I would say that is innovation. So innovation has to come from two lenses. One is what's the problem we are trying to solve, which is of course multidisciplinary, but what is the solution which makes sense to the community where that is being implemented. Anything we talk about in terms of science and technology is really not relevant if you're not talking about the user, and that is the perspective which innovation should have. So this global discussion which we have today really should be through the lens of how can we create that understanding, how can we create that empathy for the communities we serve and the communities we are trying to educate and create a social mobility, if you will, through that education. And the last bullet I will just say is, Seattle U and Seattle is very focused on our values of caring for the whole person, caring for the human. And I think this is inherent to our Indo-U.S. dialogue. And I would encourage all the leaders around the table here today to think about how we can create systems, of education, systems of entrepreneurship, if you will, in higher education, where that value system can be highlighted. So, thank you.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here, and I also want to thank Dr. Mittal and Raj for the organization of this very interesting and high potential event, I think. I'm looking forward to the conversation that goes both ways. How do we get students from India to the U.S., and how do we get students from the U.S. to India, right? I think if you, I just wanted to first highlight what President Peñalver said about, the growing number of Indian students at Seattle U. Most of those students are currently in the business school, although I know Tony and Amit want to change that. We've seen this increased interest already, and we've seen the flip from from China to India already. We've always had students from India in our business school, but they found us. We didn't find them. We weren't proactively looking for them. Well, that's changing now, right? And a lot of other universities in the U.S. are in a similar mode. Why are we also interested in having our students in both countries? I think if you look at the three problems that Eduardo articulated, the future of the planet, inequality and poverty, ethics and technology issues, they're all global issues, right? And in business schools, whether that's in the U.S. or in India or any other country, all business schools are keen to have their students have experience with students from other countries, whether that's bringing those students to your campus or sending your students to somebody else's campus. We all want to be able to say that our students have that skill to navigate across cultures. And for that reason, we're looking at all kinds of ways to do that and to partner. If you think about those three challenges, none of those are going to get solved without the business sector being involved, right? So that's another reason why our students, your students, need to be able to interact with students from all over the world successfully. To the question that we haven't talked about much yet, about how do we spark the curiosity of U.S. students about India to the point where they want to come here, right? And not just for short-term experiences, but for a semester or to come and even get their degree here. I don't have the answer for that right now. I think to be honest, we saw that in the U.S. for a while with China. That has gone away. We don't have a lot of students that are interested in going to China. I think part of it is the news and the media and the questions that are raised about India, and more that India is spotlighted in the U.S. media will spark interest amongst our students. You're going to obviously get more interest from students of Indian origin, whether their parents were born in India or their grandparents were born in India. That might happen first, but you want to do better than that, right? You want a lot more students, regardless of their ethnic heritage, having a curiosity about India and wanting to come over here. So I'm kind of looking forward to that discussion and hearing what people's thoughts on that are. So thank you.
So I don't think I can add too much more to what's been said, but I would like to share my journey a little bit and hope some of my learnings over the past 30 years of living in the United States resonate and maybe inform some of the discussion. I studied at BITS Pilani before going to the States for my PhD. And I will say that until the age of 28, I had never interacted in any significant way with someone who was not Indian. And it was only after I went to the United States that I interacted with someone from a different culture, from a different background, from a different history. And it has made all the difference in my life. It's improved the richness of my understanding of the world. It has changed my perception of the relationships between countries and people and what is important. And I think that is important for us as Indians also. The idea that India, the perception of India has changed over the years in the United States. When I first went 30 years ago to the United States, and I have to thank Adam's organization for helping me orient myself to what would happen when I went to the United States, having never been abroad before then. In those days, the only perception of India was yoga. There was a temple that they would show abject poverty on television, and that was the perception of India. And over time it evolved to outsourcing, and that was the only thing that they could talk about when it came to India. And it actually generated quite a bit of anger in the United States that people were coming for their jobs. Then the perception has slowly shifted over time, where India is now perceived as a leader, not just a leader in the United States, but a global leader. If you look at our student body in our teams that we have, Indians tend to take a leadership role in the kinds of student teams that we put together for projects. If you look at organizations now, the perception of Indians is not that they're simply technical leaders, that they are people leaders, that they're strategic leaders. And we just have to look at the leadership at Microsoft, at Google, at Starbucks, at global organizations where this combination of the sort of wisdom of India and the Indian culture brought into the context of an American form of working has made the difference. The difference that has been made at Microsoft by having somebody in a leadership position there has changed the culture of that organization. So there's just this natural fit already between India and the United States in terms of what is possible, what happens when we can get people in direct contact with one another and collaborating. And that's why I'm so energized by the idea of expanding Indian-U.S. higher education connections. So I look forward to the conversation.
I'm going to first request Dr. Adam Grotsky, who is so kindly present here, because we want to begin by having a perspective from somebody who has been in India, who is reflecting U.S. imagination in a very strong manner in India, to share your comments. I would request in the first round, let's keep it 3 minutes for each person, and then we'll see how much we save towards the end. Adam, over to you.
Fantastic. I'll keep my remarks brief. I want to piggyback on what Joseph referred to earlier, and how to get young Americans interested in India. Obviously, we've solved in a lot of ways how to get young Indians interested in going to the US, but how do we get young Americans interested? And I think you're absolutely right. The power of the media is it's extremely influential, and it goes both ways. And unfortunately, a lot of what we've gotten over the last couple of years, last decade on India, has been referring to cases of gender-based violence, of pollution. These are the kinds of stories. So what we need to be focusing on, and somehow, at least on our campuses, is changing that narrative and focusing on the positives, much of which all of you guys have covered earlier. We do attract a lot of students through Fulbright who are of Indian heritage, and that's wonderful. They tend to be, oftentimes this is the first significant experience that they've had coming here, but how do we get young Americans, how do we get our cohorts of Fulbrighters and others to better represent the great diversity of India? And I would say, I turn that to Eduardo and all of you, we need to be incorporating India into our curriculum. We need to be getting students excited about India on our campuses. And that's the message that that I say to all of the university leadership that I meet here. There is the issues here on the ground and the challenges here, which I'll just touch on briefly, but we first and foremost need to get students excited. And so that's why it's so wonderful to see delegations like this coming out. I think naturally this will have a rub-off effect as the deans and others go back to their campuses. So number one, get students excited about India. Number two, in terms of partnerships here in India, I think we have to be careful. I mean, there are institutions like Jindal Global University that has the resources and the infrastructure in place that is expected by US universities, the students, and their parents. And I'm very hopeful by seeing the national education policy and it's outlined the importance of that infrastructure on campus if we want to effectively host international students on the campuses. But Pankaj touched on a very, very important issue. She referred to it as a little issue. I will actually refer to it as, in my opinion, the most important way to move this agenda forward. And that is the creation of international programs offices on Indian campuses, not delegating or handing this over to professors on the campus, but instead having a true international office there that can help with research collaborations, can help with student and scholar exchange. That is going to be the key to success in terms of partnerships, collaborations, internationalization as a whole. And I'll just finish by saying that it's wonderful to hear about this network, Pankaj, that AIU has facilitated. I think that that is an important step. I also don't think it's enough. I think partnership with organizations like NAFSA, the Association of International Educators based in the United States, and working with them to develop training modules for international programs offices is going to be the key to success. So I would say we want to make sure not to put the cart before the horse. We need to focus on first establishing the infrastructure at the universities that will allow for effective internationalization. I'll leave it at that for now, being mindful of time. Thanks, Raj.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you so much. We'll come back a little later to respond to some of these things, but I'm going to throw it open to all of you here, especially to begin with the Vice Chancellors. I know several Vice Chancellors are present here, but it is now open. Just raise your hand and I'll come around. Please.
Yeah, I just had a question to the panel, just building further on Adam's
Just
points.
introduce yourself and...
Sorry, hi, I'm Pavan Gandhok. I'm a Vice Dean at the Jindal Global Business School. So I just had a question for the panel, building further on Adam's points. I was wondering if any of the panel members had perspectives about, which of the initiatives or innovations that they think could have more impact to achieve these challenges that Adam said. For example, Adam's point was infrastructure. Well, at Jindal, we already have the infrastructure, but there's still room to go. So once the infrastructure is there, which of these following initiatives do you think has more bang for buck? Articulation programs, some sort of hybrid online physical programs, and experiential / internship related projects?
Great.
Yes.
The answer is yes, but we'll have a... All right, it's open now. Please introduce yourself.
Yeah. My name is Raj Nehru, and I have a very different question. You made a very important statement regarding widening economic inequalities, and that's one of the reasons for the issues of inclusivity, and in most of the situations, students dropping out and not completing their education. And in India, this is a very significant problem. Our GR is almost 29% of 140 million, which is more than 100 million not in higher education. My question to you is, how does your university support such institutions or such aspiring youths or students who are product of this widening economic inequality? And how can your partnerships in India strengthen this issue? That's question number one. Number two is we are a new university in India. We have been just announced 2, 3 years back. We are a skills university. So, and I heard uh, the AIU talking about certain criteria laid down for the university partnerships. How can new universities be engaged in such kind of partnerships? Thank you.
I'll prefer to take as many comments and questions. All right, it's open. Mohan, please. Okay.
Thank you, Raj. Hear me? Yeah. Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. No, I cannot possibly contribute to this debate purely in terms of education because there are way too many qualified people than me to do that. What I did want to do, though, as an ex-foreign service officer, is to paint the strategic landscape for you, which you may or may not be aware of. The India-US strategic partnership is terribly important. No question about it. I think the disintegration of Soviet Union and China's actions have virtually, and by the way, I'm speaking Chatham House rules, driven us to the arms of the United States, which is all for the good, for reasons, Eduardo, that you so eloquently mentioned in the beginning. However, the strategic partnership is far ahead of trade, investment, intellectual property rights, and education. This education is clearly lagging behind. And I dare say the India-US strategic partnership, to my mind, is imperiled because of lack of movement on trade, investment, and IPRs. To me, that is where education can come in. The former President Donald Trump famously used to call India a tariff king because we imposed tariffs on a whole range of products. I would advise my MEA people to say, you are a visa denial king, the US. You constantly deny visas to Indians, which is a huge problem. So it can go both ways. What I'm saying, though, is defense is contributing to balancing these ties. Trade, investment, IPRs, I've done a bit of it. It'll continue to be difficult. Our views on IPRs are very different. So we'll not get into that. Trade and educational services, which is an expression I learned last night because the Vice Chancellor requested me to attend this meeting, and I'm glad I did. There's a wonderful paper by the US-India Strategic Forum. Take a look at it. They've done a wonderful 24-page note on education. They call it trade and educational services. With due respect to my American colleagues, the only way we can impress on them about the value of India is to tell them we bring $50 billion through our students who go to US. If we keep telling them we like the US, we are going there, we are contributing, all of this falls on deaf ears. If we give you the dollar figure, you'll be impressed. So I think trade and education services, to me, therefore, holds enormous importance to balance these ties. Otherwise, we will continue to argue about almonds, apples, and other things, which we do. The USTR has got a dialogue with the Indian Ministry of Commerce. I don't think any of you will want to be present in that dialogue. There's always blood on the floor after the meeting. So I think education has a very, very key role to play. And we are trying to quantify it from the Indian side so that US can be impressed. And especially with all the things that I'm hearing about Chinese students not being able to make it, I think this is a window. This window will not be open forever. And this is really a warning to all VCs, if you don't mind. I'm not as senior as the VCs here. This window will not be present always. China might bounce back in 5 years. And believe me, all of this will be forgotten. And they will again occupy center stage. So I think India has to grab this moment. Thank you, Raju.
Thank you, Mohan. That was wonderful. All right. Please, ma'am, no, just a minute. Yeah, ma'am, you had something. I'll come back. Yeah.
So I'm Ankur Prakash, heading a private university in the state of Haryana. And my question to the delegation from Seattle University is that what do you look for in a partner? In the sense that we have tried collaborating with Arizona State University, and we were struggling to get their representation in collaborative research. Although we were given a lot of opportunities in accelerated master's program, but semester abroad, joint degree, twinning of degree programs, these were certain stumbling blocks that we faced. So we would like to know how Seattle University is different from universities like ASU. And what is the rank of Seattle University in Times Higher Education ranking framework? Because that is another important aspect which is looked into when a university goes for collaboration with a foreign university. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for those very thoughtful questions. So we'll come back. I have the lady there, please.
Dr. Kumar, the first thing I want to say that the other side of the table, the representative of the Seattle University, I can see the three Indians sitting the other side that represents the power of Indian education system, who are representing on the other side of the table talking from the side of the Seattle University. I fully agree with Mr. Mohan, who talks about the education trade that has to be both the ways, because India is such a country rich in Indian heritage culture, lot to explore in it. So we really had to, I want to understand the exact agenda of the Seattle University. How are you going to connect more and more to the Indian University? Because just by signing the MOU, and because I believe that we really need to go for the functional MOUs where we can see how we are, mutually benefiting each other. That's very, very important, because we really, this is the time and the need of the time we really think on these lines. Just collaborations are not going to help us, because I think we should look for the universal content curricula for capacity building, keeping the community need in mind. So that's very important, and I think during the time of lunch, if I'm going to get a time and would understand how Seattle has a different agenda for collaborating with the Indian universities. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. That's the Vice Chancellor of Noida International University, and she's the Vice Chancellor of North Cap University. All right, let's have more voices. Please, ma'am, please.
So I have just a, yeah, I'm Dr. Sujata, and I'm Vice Chancellor of ILM University, a private university in Haryana. We have very active collaboration with Europe, 28 active collaborations. And recently we did one from US, and I'm looking forward for more from US. Monroe College recently we did. So what we did pre-COVID, we were sending all our students for international exposure to foreign country, so they can have some kind of international exposure. But during COVID, we stopped because of this reason. So apart from regular collaboration, which we do like active collaboration, student exchange, semester exchange, faculty exchange, joint research, I'm also just looking forward for some kind of immersion program with Seattle University. So short-term program and immersion program, this is the first one. And second, you talked about science and technology. This is the way forward. So can we have some kind of hybrid kind of collaboration for active education?
Thank you very much for those really thoughtful questions. Please.
Thank you. I am Dr. Thapliyal, Vice Chancellor, Swami Vivekanand Subharati University. My question is, like the ma'am asked, which sector the Seattle University is looking for to collaborate with the Indian University? That is the first question. Yeah, discipline. Which, like I belong to a health sciences university, and we've been trying to set up an integrated health discipline approach, a program in integrated health discipline. Recently, I've been to South Korea and we signed an MOU with them. Their traditional medicine system with the modern system and with the Indian system, like Ayurveda, their traditional system, and integrating with modern system. Why I'm telling you this? Because during COVID-19, we learned this. It was the one system was not good enough to treat the patients. So when we integrated various other systems, we could help our patients. So that is one area we are looking for. And we are establishing the Department of Integrated Medicines, where we are combining with naturopathy, yoga, Ayurveda, modern medicine, and homeopathy. So some kind of a short courses and some kind of a initial training we are imparting. If you have such system of integrated medicine in your university, we would like to know that.
Fascinating. In fact, very interesting. The thought process that's emerging out of many people is the commitment to internationalization is there. How do we go about it? What are the key things that we need to do? What are the possibilities that exist? So thank you very much for those. Please. No, let's have him and then followed by.
Thank you, Dr. Raj Kumar.
Kindly introduce yourself, sir.
Yeah, I am Dr. Kalra. I am Vice Chancellor of STT University, which is a private university in Haryana, Delhi NCR region. As Dr. Pankaj Mittal rightly mentioned in the beginning, and we all know through the UGC regulations that in order to have collaboration with a foreign university, you have to be eligible, and the eligibility clauses are either you are NAC accredited A grade or more, or NIRF ranking within top 100 or within top 1000 of the world university rankings. Now, out of 1000 plus universities in India, I personally feel there won't be more than 250 or so which are really eligible for this. And out of the eligible ones, maybe around 1/4 or so, this is just a rough guess, would be going ahead with the foreign collaboration. Now, a university which is having A grade accreditation and has 20 faculties, it doesn't mean that all the faculties are having really a good quality of level to have collaboration with a foreign university. While on the other hand, a university may not be A grade, but then out of say 18 faculties or 18 departments that it is having, 1 or 2 program may be extraordinary and they may be of real international standards. So therefore, I feel that the University Grants Commission, that is at our level in India, which is a regulatory body for higher education in India, they should look at accreditation of programs or faculties, that if my business school is excellent, then they should be able to collaborate with a business school in any foreign university, even if the university is not A grade or NIRF top 100. Because out of 1100 universities, only top 100, only 100 will be in the top 100 category. And therefore, the program accreditation or the accreditation of the faculty is more important instead of only the university accreditation. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Thank you so much for that. Ravi.
Yeah, Ravi Thapar, Professor and Executive Dean at School of International Affairs, Jindal University. First, the politics. I would resonate with the earlier sentiments. I think we are at a very unique point of history where technology could bring in disruption and also conflict. And I think the US stands for a rule-based world order. And India's pacifist credentials absolutely resonate with that. So the world's greatest democracy with the largest democracy, I think we can be good partners. That's something which is inadvertent, inevitable, if we have to be sustaining peace in the world. In fact, I have informally differed with my colleagues in the external affairs. I think we should have taken a more vocal stand on the Russia-Ukraine issue, and perhaps we should have been a more active peacemaker because we have that position. On the practical stuff, I think that there's a lot which India has to do and give to the world. I mean, it's not just about spirituality and other things, but it's actually our ICT credentials, our prowess and expertise in the STEMs and emerging technologies, and also a unique position in the Global South. We are quite a leader in the Global South with northern, if I may use in inverted commas, symptoms, and we can be an example. So what I'm getting to is that maybe if the handshake between India and US higher education has been student-driven from the Indian side, I think this time from the US to Indian side should be faculty-driven. I think the faculty will have to inspire the students about the merits of doing more research and collaborating with India on solving contemporary global issues, which you, sir, had mentioned about. And on that, on that track, can the US system, educational system, think of possibly actually giving sponsorships, scholarships. I know the Foreign Service always gives a hardship allowance when they post diplomats to India. Maybe you could put in some hardship allowance for US professors. And once they start coming here and do projects with our students and your students, I think that will carry a lot of weight. So that's my suggestion. Thank you.
Ravi, I can tell you that for US professors to come to India is no hardship at all. I mean, it is, I can assure you that they will be very happy here. That's a question. Yeah, please, Doctor.
I'm Dia from the Fulbright Commission, so I would just like to bring up the Fulbright program, which is, an excellent platform for, discovering each other, which is a safe platform for you to dive into and find out, alignments and interests. What we are seeing over the last few years, both Adam and I, that there has been a very steep decline of interest in participating in the Fulbright program from, US faculty. And, we don't get, tenured faculty coming in for the Fulbright program. Is either early career, that's also getting less and less. It's mostly emeritus and mostly people of Indian, origin, which is fine, but sometimes that may not lead to, active collaboration, because that is what we want, the faculty to go back and ignite that interest. So, I am a product of US universities and greatly admire, but aren't there some inherent crisis going on in the American higher education, which is preventing faculty, from taking, that risk and dive into, taking time out to look for collaboration? So I think that also needs to be, addressed sometimes, somewhere in the dialogue. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's have more voices here, please. You want to? Okay, I'll come back to you.
Yeah, good morning. I'm Kuldeep Dagar from AIU. So we all know the merits of internationalization, but one of the major concern among academia is that so internationalization, sometimes we go overboard in terms of adopting the models and education system of developed country, and they are blindly adopted by the developing country without much regards for the cultural diversity and the local context. And it sometimes kills the innovation which is prevalent and which is relevant in that particular society. So, and these are the critics part of the internationalization. So, because Seattle University has students from various nationalities, so how do you address this? And during particularly collaborations, so how, these two things are merged with the, giving equal importance to the culture and the diversity which is there in that country?
Thank you for that question. I'm sure, please, sir. You had a question, right?
Yep. Hello, yeah. I'm sorry, I'm not from academia. I'm from industry. I've spent nearly 35 to 40 years in the industry, out of which 15 years in India and 25 years out of India. I'm talking about...
Kindly introduce yourself, please.
Sorry, I'm Mukesh Goswami, a fashion retailer. I'm now professor cum director at Shuri University, Himachal. I've spent nearly 25 years out of India, 15 years in India retail. My question is totally different, or my viewpoint. I look at it that why the students go abroad. Education taking there is a medium for settling down there, getting jobs over there. We are not going there primarily for education. Maybe only, I was with him, he says hardly 10% people go there for education, rest for better opportunities.
I just made up that figure. I just made it up.
It's a guess. There is no data on that. We were just discussing. Right? So basically we are going there for opportunities. So can internationally, when we talk of your university, make certain programs that students come over here, they live over here, there's a long-term programs, and even the Indian students who opt to take the courses of your universities here, they are given the same sort of financial benefits, the work culture and everything over there. The infrastructure to be set up in these universities, which may be there, which is there with General University. But majority of the universities, they don't have that in India. That's my impression is there. I may be totally wrong because I do not have any data to prove it. That's the way I look at it.
Thank you very much, sir, for those thoughtful reflections. Please. Yeah, sure.
Myself, Professor J.P. Yadav, Vice Chancellor, Indira Gandhi University, Mirpur, Rewari, Haryana. My direct question to Dr. Shukla, what are the area of the collaboration in the field of life sciences? And in our National Education Policy 2020, the emphasis has been given on the Indian traditional knowledge. And our Ayurveda system has a lot of traditional knowledge system in even in the Vedas, Atharvaveda, which have a description of many plants. And we are going to validate these. And we have also seen at the time of the COVID that they are effective. Is there any collaborative activity in the field of traditional medicine that is carried out by the Seattle University? And we are ready to collaborate in this field because we are validating and we have found many of the plants that we have filed are also patent in this regards. My second question, whether there is a financial support given to the students in the cultural exchange program by the Seattle University? So these are my questions.
Thank you.
And one more thing. Is there any body working on the photolyze enzyme? Because nowadays the environment is the major problem. And through photosynthesis, plant, the enzyme which is found in the plant, at normal temperature, it converts water into hydrogen and oxygen. So is there any innovative activity that the photolyze enzyme we can create and we can utilize for the this problem of the environment by creating oxygen and hydrogen, because hydrogen fuel is supposed to be a clean energy source. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Let me recognize the Vice Chancellor of Sharda University.
Yeah, I am Sivaram Khara from Sharda University. I have been asked one question recently by one academician that in Sharda University, we have 14% international students. We are hosting 95 countries in the campus. And once upon a time in 2018, we were having the highest number of foreign students. Why are you recruiting foreign students once the Indian students are going to the foreign? No, I was asked this question. Anyway, in the export service, as far as education service is concerned, the students from South Africa, Middle East, Asia, and neighboring countries, they are coming to India. Because probably if they go to China or US or any advanced country, the cost will be more. With the affordable cost, if they come to the India getting good quality educations as well as and they are completing their degrees. So this is affordable with good quality. But here problem is that is huge number of students are going to USA or Australia and UK and other countries. As the UGC and Ministry of Education is proposing that foreign universities, good universities, they'll be allowed to establish their campuses in India. In my opinion, first phase is that how to stop the Indian students, those who are going, so that those revenues are retained in India. And on top of that, I think some people have already told that now, how do you make your Indian institutes, which is run by purely Indian institutes or the foreign universities opening off campus here in India, will grab the foreign students, the country like USA, Australia, and UK. So this is a big exercise is required. I think over the time you have to break the ice. First you stop and gradually, and also the concern is raised that the ambience, the cultural difference, the polarizations, all those things to be addressed so that these foreign students, USA or UK students come to India and they are interested. So how to grow the interest? It's not only the quality educations, other societal aspects are also there. I think we need to work on that. And my question is that other two small questions in this regard, that still in UGC, list of programs are there. Universities are so far not allowed to have launch any programs in any other name. It is not listed in the UGC website. But there are certain programs in Nigeria or in Nepal and some of the countries, they require the degree name as per their country, so that those degrees are very well respected and accepted in their countries. But we are unable to do that. We have taken these issues in the UP State Higher Education Council, but still things are not being resolved. So will these Indian university be permitted to launch the programs which is required by those countries? Maybe many Uzbekistan or Nigeria or Congo and Nepal and other countries. This is one question. And other question is that what will be the strategic partnership or strategy in the UGC level or MU level or even AIU thinking that to have success, to grab the foreign students from the developed country to the India, they will come and study. I think we need to work on that.
Great, very interesting thoughts. All right, let's have some more, please.
I am Dr. Archana from representing a School of Law at the North Cape University. My question is basically with regard to internationalization of legal education. We understand the fact that there are a lot of constraints with regard to maybe jurisdiction, and there are many other issues, but irrespective of all of this, we have been able to integrate a lot of courses, a lot of areas within the existing curriculum of our regulatory bodies here in India. That is one aspect. So I probably would not like to say that there are still limitations in terms of internationalization of legal education. That is one aspect. Second, a lot of statistics were discussed here with regard to Indian students going abroad and their students, your students coming to India. There are limitations that we do not get that many students. While I can talk about our Indian legal education curriculum, where we do introduce courses like Introduction to US Legal System. Whether our students will end up in US or not, that is immaterial, but we do recognize courses like Introduction to US Legal System. Why not, when we are talking about collaboration, it has to be a two-way process. So why not having courses like Introduction to Indian Legal System in the US legal curriculum? I think that is where the collaboration will make more sense, and probably would not have to struggle to introduce India to US students or any other country students in terms of inviting them and have. In fact, I have also been very surprised to see most of the academic research that are taking place in India. There are many students coming from US, many researchers coming from US and taking interest in Indian legal research and doing a wonderful job. So why not then introducing Indian courses in US and making the collaboration more meaningful? Thank you.
Archana, that was a great question, and I'm sure our Dean and President will respond to it as well. All right, let's have a couple of more. Yeah, please, ma'am.
Yeah. I'm Professor Poonam Bansal. I am representing Indira Gandhi Delhi Technical University for Women. It's Asia's Women Technical University. I just want to add the points of Nupur ma'am only. Like, what is the stand of Seattle University in providing the dual degree programs? Because we already have one MOU, and our students are doing the dual degree PhD course from James Cook University, Australia. And similarly, we have some of our students are doing common, joint internships in technical science from NAIST, Nara Institute of Engineering Technology, Japan. Right. So what is the stand of Seattle University in those respects? Dual degree program and providing internship to students and specifically to engineering technology.
Wonderful. Great. Please, ma'am.
Many online courses for few credits which can be integrated with the already curriculum which the students are following in India, till we have guidelines about other semester exchange and other things. So those
Excellent.
online courses can.
Great questions. Thank you so much for that. Please, ma'am.
So this is Professor Sharda Ashish from the North Cape University. I'm handling International Affairs Office. So in fact, it's good to see that we are discussing the two-way exchange instead of one-way exchange. Earlier, it was only a one-way exchange. So I think, yeah, but it was considered exchange, but it was one-way only. But now, because we are looking in this direction for having two-way exchange, so I think we can leverage on the unique features which our Indian education system have. So maybe the Indian knowledge system, maybe the languages, and through the immersion programs, directly. It's to Adam's questions, how to excite American students to come to India. So maybe through immersion programs, we can have them here, through using the spirituality as, because that's a unique feature, and there's a pure science, so that we can use, and even the languages. So I think immersion programs will be a great way to attract the American students to come here in India.
Excellent. This is going very well. We have another good 20 minutes for them to respond as well. I'm going to take a last round of questions, please.
Thank you very much, sir, for this opportunity. I am from Manav Rachana International Institute of Research and Study, Dr. G.L. Khanna. And we had a lot of collaboration with various universities, but the problem comes when execution part comes to that place. Execution in terms of when we want to do some kind of research collaboration based on some DST advertisement or Department of Science Technology or ICMR funding, the partner, getting the partner from right partner from that side becomes very difficult from those. I don't know, how do we really work out that portal which Madam has suggested and find out real partners, or that is feasible if we have a frequent exchange program, either online or offline, some lectures or something, teaching processes, we have to evolve those processes also. The third part is very difficult to get funding, even if somebody agrees on to work on the other areas other than whatever has been announced by our government agencies or some private agencies. So those program funding is very limited. So how do we really work out those areas also that funding is made feasible, or some other opportunities are through the university collaboration or through AI you can facilitate those processes?
Thank you very much. We'll have two more questions. I know you raised your hand. Yeah, please, ma'am. We'll come back.
So I'm Shrija Jha. As I mentioned, I am an alumni of Jindal Global University. I was in the law school, and now I work with the students as a university administrator. So rather than a question, it's more of a perspective. I'm a recent graduate, and I'm talking to students who are wanting to join universities. And in the conversations I've had, there's one thing that I wanted to point out, that one nation cannot exist without the other. And I think the pandemic was quite the evidence of that. So when we talk about, this exchange of students, it's not just an exchange of students, rather an exchange of ideas and syllabi, and more of the fact that now we need to focus on a multidisciplinary approach. But how do we create awareness about that in the students? Because I believe that in India, it's still rather a new thing. A multidisciplinary or interdisciplinary approach is a new thing. And for example, Jindal itself has very niche programs. And the way that we go about it is try to make students aware of issues. For example, in the pandemic itself, we realized there's a necessity for discussing public health policies, because those kind of programs were not available. So how do you think we can go about it in creating an interest in the students, not just in India, but also abroad, about these niche ideas that are coming about now because of the global challenges that we are facing?
Thank you for that. All right, over to you, ma'am.
Yeah, hi, I am Professor Manjula Chaudhary and I represent Kurukshetra University. This is the oldest and largest public university of Haryana. So I have attended earlier meetings also for the US collaboration and UK collaboration, but my concerns are that when we are looking for collaborations, our goals are entirely different. And what I want to know is there any possibility where we can collaborate only for project-specific things, where students can come together and find out a solution? The problem can be in India, where the US students can come. It can be in US, where Indian students can go. And it can be a short-term program, but after that, it builds into a very long-term collaboration. So will the US universities like Seattle will be open to changing their curriculum or course structure for this type of collaboration? Because as far as theoretical courses are concerned, sooner or later, they all will be available online. So this is what I'm looking for. Thank you.
When I was at Cornell, I was the dean at Cornell Law School for 7 years before I moved to Seattle University. And we had a strong relationship with Jindal Law School, and we had exchange programs, and we did struggle to get the U.S. students to visit Jindal. We had a good flow of students from Jindal for semester visits, and I think there are many reasons for that. One of them is the nature of the legal curriculum in the United States that makes it harder to go abroad, and so we just have a smaller number of students who are willing to do that to begin with. But I do think that I don't think the issue is a lack of interest in India. I mean, I think that is not the challenge, the primary challenge. So just to give an example, Professor Kalantri from Seattle University Law School, the associate dean, is leading a group of students here to India in March. She has a certain number of spots available in that program, and I think she received maybe 3 times the number of applications as the spots were available, and she had to turn people away, and people were upset. They wanted to come. You know, I think what was attractive about that program was really 2 things. I mean, one is this, you know, and several people mentioned immersion programs. I think the shorter duration visit is very attractive, and it helps get at this issue of the rigidity of the curriculum sometimes in certain areas of study, and so it creates more flexibility. It doesn't mean that's the extent of the collaboration, right? I mean, I'll say a little more about that, but the immersion program is very attractive. And then the second piece that I think is incredibly attractive is the idea of having a guide, right? I mean, Professor Kalantri knows India very well. She's been here many, many times, writes about India, and knows many of you, and so she'll be bringing the students. And you know, if you haven't been to India before, I can tell you it's a challenging place to travel because it's vast and it's complicated, and it's you know, unless you're a very seasoned traveler, it's a challenging place to visit without a guide. And so structure, and that doesn't mean that, you know, it has to be someone accompanying it. It could be structure that you create, and I think that's one of the things Jindal has done very well. And then the third piece is, and then I'll circle back to the first one, is I think a key kind of precursor to attracting U.S. students to India will be the faculty relationships. You know, if faculty come to India, develop their own interests, their own research interests, their own relationships in India, they go back and then they will encourage students to come and study here. And that's, you know, that's what Sheetal Kalantri is doing, right? She works here. She does a lot of work around India in her legal scholarship. It's a priority for her to expose students to India, and she talks about it and talks it up, and the students listen. And so if we want these relationships to be bilateral, we need to create relationships among faculty. And when you have that, then those immersion programs are not these short-term relationships, right? They can be more extended, but with they're sort of hybrid, right? You have a collaboration that could be remote, coupled with these periods of intense, immersive, in-person collaboration. And to give an example, and Dean Varona could probably talk about this in connection with other projects. I know that Professor Kalantri has done joint clinical projects, and this speaks to I think the last question about problems. Clinical projects between her law clinic this was when she was at Cornell, and a law clinic at Jindal, where they worked on a project over the course of an entire semester with a group of students in India, a group of students in New York State. And during most of the semester, it was remote. They were using Zoom. I don't know if it was Zoom at that time. It was maybe this was pre-COVID, so some video conferencing technology, and they would meet on a weekly basis. You know, it's tricky to schedule. Early in the morning or late at night was pretty much the order of the day. And then that was coupled with a 2-week visit where the classes came together and traveled and did site visits. And then it continued. Then after the students returned to the United States, that collaboration continued remotely. So it was an immersion in terms of the in-person component, but it was a semester-long exchange in terms of the collaboration, and those relationships are ongoing. So I think faculty are really the key to making the relationship truly collaborative and bilateral, and to providing the structure that will facilitate students coming from the United States to India. What kinds of collaborations and which disciplines? I think, what's interesting is I have deans here from half of the colleges at Seattle University. We sort of predicted in advance, okay, which are the areas where we think there's the most likely interest in collaboration, and we thought, STEM and law and business. And yet, you know, in our day of meetings yesterday at Jindal, it was clear that we had left 3 deans behind because questions came up around education, around healthcare, and around psychology, which at our university is rooted in the College of Arts and Sciences. And so we really should have brought all 6 deans. So I think that it's really, you know, we are a comprehensive university. We cover pretty much the whole territory. The collaborations that we're interested in are the collaborations that students on both sides are interested in, and I think that's really everything. So it's hard to cabin that. I think where, you know, it's going to depend. It's going to vary based on the breadth or the focus of your own particular institution. But certainly the forms of collaboration can run the gamut, and we already have a dual degree program. I think we can call it that, right? With Jindal in the law school. We have been talking about accelerated degree programs that will yield joint degrees, exchange programs, immersions. I mean, all of those things, and again, in both directions, having our students coming to India and having students coming from India for either an entire semester, an entire year, or even a short visit to the United States, to Seattle University, and then coupling those with opportunities to engage with the local business community, with the local civic community, with the nonprofit community in the Seattle area. All of those are very vibrant. So I think that there's just an immense set of opportunities, and I think it's really all built on the back of relationships and the specificity of the institutions and the collaborators. I don't know if the others.
I think President Peñalver did a very good job of addressing many of your questions. I want to get to the heart of the charge to this conversation, which was how to attract more students in both directions, right? And so I think it would be helpful for us to share with you what we have been discussing in the United States for the last 6 months or so, which has been a number of studies that have been released, a number of stories in various publications of some note that have looked into the mindset of the American student today and the effect that COVID has had, not biologically, but psychologically on those students. And I will share with you that in advance of COVID, when I was the dean at the University of Miami School of Law, 1 week before COVID took hold, so this was in, I think, sometime in February of 2020, I was having lunch with a number of judges in Florida and was asking them about cameras in the courtroom, online proceedings, and to a judge, they said, we will never allow online proceedings to take hold in our courtroom. One judge said, I need to smell the litigants. And the other judge said, well, I don't need to smell them, but having them in person is very important. You all know what happened. The entire world knows what happened. Those online proceedings started to take place, and all of a sudden there were online hearings, online trials, online depositions. In education, in the American education space, what we have learned is that our students are refusing to go back to pre-COVID circumstances. And what they have told us is that they do not want to go back to traditional, even 4-year college degree programs without significant levels of innovation to them. They are not going back to traditional LLM programs. They are not going back to what had been a very traditional sage on the stage approach to teaching with the proscenium seating layout. That is dead. So what students are demanding is innovation and flexibility. So several of you have mentioned hybridization. President Peñalver did too. That, I believe, is the solution. That is, I believe, what we need to leverage, hybridization. So one of the things that I love about our Jindal Global colleagues is that they are all about innovation and making sure that they are defining the future of higher education. We are doing the same thing at Seattle U. So one of the things that we have set up is a brand new SJD program, a legal PhD program, that allows prominent and promising junior faculty and others, more senior faculty members and judges and practitioners, to pursue a legal doctorate, an SJD at Seattle U, in a hybrid form. So it had been the case that you had to spend 1 year in person in residency at your SJD institution in the States and then go back to your home country. We are not doing it that way. We are creating a new hybrid residency program with Jindal Global, where SJD candidates can spend a varying amount of time in person in Seattle and then come back to their home nation, likely, well, certainly Jindal Global here, but we are working on partnerships with other institutions around the world that are rooted in hybridization, plans that are rooted in hybridization. So that's number one. Number two, I think it's very important to underscore what we've already said, but in the legal context particularly, faculty exchanges and faculty investment in the two-way academic entrepreneurial exercises that we are undertaking is very important. And so one of the things that we are instituting in this SJD program and in our very innovative LLM programs at Seattle University is the ability, of course, depending on qualifications, for these candidates coming to us from India and from all over other parts of the world to serve as adjunct professors at Seattle University so that they are teaching courses to students across our curricula. So JD students, LLM students, SJD students who want to audit, and students who want to cross-register from other parts of Seattle U. That is of tremendous benefit for our Seattle University School of Law and Seattle University students, of course, because they are going to be taught by your colleagues and maybe some of you in this room. But of course, for SJD and LLM candidates, the benefit is that they now have a teaching credential in the United States at a very good university like Seattle U. So there are these kinds of innovations that we could put into place that leverage hybridization. And again, that teaching of which I speak can itself be hybridized or fully online as needed if the SJD candidate, for example, comes back to India and then is able to teach for us one semester of some of these courses that we've been talking about, right? Introduction to Indian jurisprudence, say. That would be a very attractive course. Let's have it be taught by a prominent professor in India who happens also to be one of our SJD candidates, and have it be taught from India to our students at Seattle U. So these are ways that we could leverage the lessons taught by COVID. One of the things that I joked with our colleagues at Jindal Global yesterday was that Raj and the other colleagues there did not waste a crisis with COVID and have created an even better, more expansive campus with truly innovative programs because of, not in spite of COVID, right? And so that's how we need to be thinking. Finally, the last thing that I will share are two very, very quick things. Number one, we have to solve this visa problem. So I completely agree with you. This just pulls my hair out. When I have to help students who are wanting to come to us and cannot because of some crazy visa decision. So we are, as American legal educators, I will speak for my colleagues. We are with you in your frustration. This is something that we have to fix. This is something that frankly, I will take this conversation back with us to the US and share with prominent officials there what you have shared with us, because it's frankly the same thing that we've been telling them. So that will be very helpful. A couple of you also have mentioned the importance of multiculturalism and anti-racism and cross-border understanding. This is what is one of the benefits of American legal education from my perspective. I myself am not an American-born American. I'm a naturalized citizen born in Cuba. So I take particular pride in how our legal education space in the US is incredibly multicultural. At Seattle University School of Law, close to half of our students are themselves multicultural, from all walks of life, from all over the world, from many different races, speaking many different languages. And one of the benefits, therefore, of having students come to us from countries all around the world is that those students get exposed to a United Nations of curricular and pedagogical classroom experience. So I join you in your interest in multicultural higher ed.
Thank you so much. We are moving to the concluding remarks shortly, but I'm going to request the Seattle friends 1 minute each if you would like to make a comment. Amit, and then Joseph, and then Madhu. 1 minute, please.
Thank you for your questions today. So I'll add to what my colleagues here have mentioned. Just a very simple question. The purpose of higher education, in my mind, is twofold. One is social mobility, and I'm a prime example, and many of us are. And the second is to solve problems which society faces so that we can create a better quality of life. To do that, we have to have the context, and hence we have to have faculty exchanges to have student exchanges and all of the above. So we need to identify problems. We need to identify what we are commonly interested in, but Seattle U and College of Science and Engineering at Seattle U is very interested in all of those. So thank you.
Yes, to get back to your question about programs that Seattle U is interested in and how do you make these partnerships happen, I would say that as in the context of the business school, we're interested in all of them. From a practical standpoint, how do you make them happen? Well, I think what Eduardo said about faculty champions, you really have to have faculty at both institutions that know each other one way or the other for these things to work. It can't be done at the administrative level. You've got to have the creativity and the innovation come from faculty. And as Tony said, we're really limited in our imagination by the capabilities of technology that have leaped in COVID, and there's all kinds of ways to get faculty to work together and get faculty to leverage those connections. And then final thing I'll say is several times there was a question about what are we looking for in an Indian partner institution. I think one of the things we're looking for is the assurance that we're dealing with a partner that's committed to academic excellence, that you have quality programs, quality faculty, quality students, that if your students come to our campus, they're going to do really well. In fact, give me the problem that they're doing better than my students are, right? That's what we would like to have. So those are just a few considerations. There were questions about projects of like teams of Seattle U and Indian University students working together. Absolutely, we have done things like that over the years. Again, technology is going to make that a lot easier to do going forward. And as I said, we're just limited by our imagination in terms of how we want to use the tools that we have available to us.
Thank you, Joseph. Madhu.
So I really am worried about the issue of exchanges because it eliminates parts of the populations that can actually afford it. So there's a cost associated with it, and we need to find ways to make this accessible to students otherwise who could not be able to afford such a rich exchange. I like the idea of finding ways of having projects that are ongoing where students don't have to move but still have the opportunity to work together in teams, in collaboration. At Seattle U in the business school, we work with one university where there's an annual hackathon where we have teams that combine students from the Indian University with our students, and they get a chance to work together over online, but still working together to solve a social problem that has been put forward as the theme. We have online classes where a Indian faculty member and a Seattle University faculty member jointly devise a module that they can work together in each of their respective classes. So I think that the collaboration also has to be persistent and constant if we really want to create the kinds of connections that we're talking about today.
Thank you, Madhu. Now we are moving to the end of this fascinating session. I'm going to request President Eduardo Peñalver to deliver his concluding remarks.
Well, we're almost at time, so I'll be very brief. I just want to thank you all for coming this morning, now afternoon, for your really thoughtful questions, which I think help us to think through how to do this better. Really appreciated that. And then obviously, thank you, Dr. Mittal and Vice Chancellor Raj Kumar for facilitating this and bringing us all together.
All right. Before I request Dr. Mittal to give a last word on this, I want to quickly, I'm not planning to summarize what we have done, but I want to say it was a fascinating discussion. I'm so glad we have recorded it, because so many things that emerged out of this discussion will be of great use to all of us. Very quickly, I have put in what is known as a SWOT analysis of the US-India higher education. SWOT analysis, as some of you might know, it's strengths, weaknesses, obstacles, and threats. I'm going to do obstacles and not opportunities. Yes, I deliberately put obstacles. Strengths. We are both democracies, and we talked about that. The pluralism and our democratic culture should naturally bring us close to each other, and that's one of our biggest strengths. I'm keeping it short. Second, we have in India a large number of young people who are aspiring to get high quality education abroad, including the United States. There has been a tectonic shift in which 25 years ago, this aspiration was limited to a very small number of people. Today, second-tier and third-tier cities across India. I come from Kanyakumari, which is the southernmost tip of India, and I have students in Kanyakumari who are wanting to study in the United States. This simply did not exist 25 years ago. Third, the great and extraordinary and enduring reputation of US universities. US universities continue to be the champion of innovation, excellence, and there is a natural sense of assumption that US universities are some of the leading institutions in the world, and that's our strengths. I've only identified 3. Weaknesses. First, difficulty to navigate Indian higher education system from a US standpoint. Just to give you a perspective, so many people beware under the Haryana government known as O.P. Jindal Global University. And then when we got the status of the Institution of Eminence, we were called Institution of Eminence deemed to be university. And then my American friends are asking me, what happened? You seem to have been downgraded. You were a university before, but now you are deemed to be university. There are so many questions and doubts about the Indian education system and the fact that we have 22 regulatory bodies plus state government, central government, and the courts regulating higher education. It's a nightmare to understand Indian higher education. Second, regulatory challenges, which we have come a long way, but mutual recognition of degrees as well as accreditation are issues that still we will have to battle at both sides. Third, something that we have not talked much, but the question that Indian students will keep asking is return on investment in the higher education. JGU, our own university, or other private universities, we are relatively more expensive than typical public universities, but we are 10 times cheaper than an average American university, 8 to 7 times cheaper than a British university, 6 to 5 times cheaper than Australian universities. The return on investment question, which we need to address. Third, it's not opportunities, I'm calling it obstacles. One of the obstacles that is seen from the Indian standpoint for American universities, and in fact, Mohan was not there, this is not a unique US problem, safety and security and well-being of international students has been a concern for many people abroad. Something that we don't talk about it, but it is also a factor that includes issues surrounding discrimination, even especially violence against women, safety of women students, but also overall well-being of international students. In the Indian context, the entire FRRO process, foreign residence registration, and the challenges surrounding it is a challenge. the American context, the visa problem. We are living through the nightmare of, US visas being delayed and so much of insensitivity at all levels of US embassy to be able to recognize that this is a critical aspect of the India-US education partnership. And I'm unfortunately, the US universities have not been able to, put adequate pressure on the US State Department and the embassies to address that. And that's why this will remain a major obstacle. And this obstacle has created opportunities for many other countries. And I'll come back to it, which is in the form of threats. UK, Australia, other parts of Asia, Central Asia, Europe will continue to be a major aspiration for Indian students. And I believe that what UK has done in the last couple of years has had a tectonic shift in the approach towards Indian students going to UK. And Indian students going to UK has increased to this year more than pre-COVID levels. So there are critical immigration and public policy reforms, including visa reforms that the UK government has initiated, which has had a direct bearing on Indian students' attractiveness to go to UK. Second, regulatory restrictions and barriers, and here I also mention online education. There is a natural tendency for online education to dominate the potential discourse of actually students physically moving to another country. I'm not opposed to it. We do online education as well, but we need to strike a delicate balance between to what extent online, blended, hybrid education can not substitute the experience of Indian students going to US or US students coming to India. Last, the third bit is that lack of jobs and opportunities for students going abroad. One of the things that has happened with Australia is that there is a natural aspiration and an institutional ecosystem that has been generated whereby international students are able to seek job opportunities after they end up going. While the US visa process allows the optional practical training visa opportunities, but frankly, jobs becomes a serious challenge. This will remain a threat in the US India higher education concept or rather, phenomenon. So I want to stop here. And I want to say thank you to President Peñalver and the deans of Seattle University. Thank you to all our fellow vice chancellors, deans, educationists, industry experts, and many others who have been part of this dialogue. I want to thank the AIU, in particular, our very dear Dr. Pani and his team, and of course, Dr. Pankaj Mittal for facilitating this dialogue. Dr. Mittal and AIU, I call them as they have the most reputed and robust convening power. If Dr. Mittal calls, people turn up. And that's why all of you are here. I want to thank all of you for your presence and indeed thank Dr. Mittal. So over to you, Dr. Mittal, for your closing comments and the last word in today's dialogue.
Okay. Thank you, Professor Raj, and thanks for that SWOT analysis, although it was obstacles rather than opportunities. So thank you very much, and thanks to everybody. These have been very, very fascinating discussions. A lot has been learned, a lot of experience sharing has been there. What I would say, as concluding remarks, is that India has a lot of potential. And potential of India was known when on 21st of June, yoga became the International Yoga Day. The whole world recognized yoga. The potential of India is known when we say that we have a demographic advantage to our favor. We are the youngest nation in the world, and that too a nation which is having multiple cultures, multiple languages, a lot of diversity. We feel that India has a potential when not only Google and Microsoft are in Seattle, but also Satya Nadella and Sundar Pichai. They both are also Indians. When Noida International was talking about, we have in the Seattle delegation, 2 are Indians, not 3, but one is there whose wife is an Indian, the president himself.
He looks like an Indian though.
That's right. That's how I ended up with an Indian wife. She thought I was Indian.
So better half is Indian. So, and right now we are the 5th largest economy. We are going soon to be the 3rd largest economy in the world. And Indian students last year spent around $7.6 billion in US while studying there. So we do have a lot of potential, but we don't want that India should be seen as a consumer market, that people come to India, take our students, and they keep on contributing to the economies of these countries. So we want equal partnerships, and equal partnerships are possible. I'll just give you a small example of my university in which I was a vice chancellor. That was again in Sonipat, a rural women university. When I was there, Adam gave me the Fulbright fellowship, and I was a Fulbrighter because of Adam. But not only that, then a cohort from American universities came to that rural women university, and I think he will agree with me that they were so happy to visit the university. They say that was the best visit because we introduced them to the rural tourism. So whatever strengths you have, you can sort of showcase to the foreign countries. Similarly, there was a professor who was again from Oklahoma University, who was, courtesy again Adam, who was working in, or rather he was working in Department of Social Work for around 3 months. 3 months he was working, and he contributed a lot, and our girls, rural girls, they learned a lot from him. I'm only talking of US and our university. We had a collaboration with Catherine University, in which these 2 scholars from Catherine University used to come very, very regularly to the BPS Women University for that language lab, and they used to interact with our students, and they were very happy. So it's not only that we need the best hostels, we need the best infrastructure, we need everything best, then only the foreign students will come. It is the way the leadership of the university interacts, the way the deans and the heads of the departments interact. So internationalization very much depends upon the leadership and the approach you take, how much the outreach you make. So that is possible. And now that I am in AIU and I told you about the INHI, that Indian Network of International Higher Educators, so do become a member of INHI. So all the universities here, if you want to enter into internationalization, if you want a help from AIU to promote internationalization, do become a member of INHI. That will be beneficial. And our aim is to project India as a destination for affordable quality education. As Dr. Raj was saying, although his fees is higher, but there are many, many universities whose fee is very good, low, and the quality of education is very good. But we have to market our education, we have to promote our education, and we have to tell the world that what we are. That is why we are proposing, I don't know whether it will be agreed or not, under G20, when India is hosting its presidency, AIU is sending a proposal that let us have U20 also, where the universities from these G20 countries, they come to India, they have a dialogue, maybe a bigger dialogue than this. They visit some of the best institutions of India. They see what Indian universities are like, because otherwise most of the people feel that India is to learn. We don't have anything to learn from India. So let them come to India, let them see Indian universities and see that how good Indian higher education is, why students should come to India, and why collaboration should be with India at equal footing. So that is our aim. Let us see if we can get through that. So with that, I like to thank Dr. Raj for arranging all these things and the dialogue with the Seattle University. I like to thank the president of the Seattle University and the delegation from the Seattle University for coming here, interacting with all of you, and answering almost all the questions which you all posed to him. I'll thank Adam for everything he has done for me, for our university, and contributing here in this dialogue. And I also thank all the vice chancellors, the academicians, the faculty of Jindal who are here and contributing to this particular program. And thanks to our own Dr. Pani and his team who have been working hard for this program. Thank you very much. Thank you.